Welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Today we're going to talk about oppression. Actually, it's less about oppression than it is about identitarianism. I don't know. Let's talk about social justice. Seems safe enough, right? Social justice is the idea that we need to apply special methods to help bring underprivileged minority or disadvantaged populations into full equality, full equal justice. Except it's not that. It never was that, and even the way it's phrased, even the initial way it's phrased, is scary because it talks about the idea that you have special groups, underprivileged groups, that need something other than fair treatment. I'm all about equal justice, and I'm perfectly accepting of that. Equal justice relies on an acceptance of the basic premise that your nation, your society, your culture has value, and that if you assimilate into that, you get treated with the same values, the same treatment, the same opportunities, the same restrictions, the same legal and ethical standards as the rest of that society. And insofar as America has generally been very free about letting individuals make many choices about their individual ethics, morals, behaviors, it's a fine thing. It's fantastic. Equal justice. I love equal justice. Great way to do things. Social justice is the assumption that you cannot have equal justice. Okay? First and foremost, the absolute basic breakdown here is that you can't have equal justice. There are groups that must be treated with special privileges, special access, special stuff. This goes against the very basic founding American philosophies, including immigration. So immigration, our previous model of immigration is you come, you immigrate, you assimilate, you become part of American culture, you acculturate. In the process, you're probably going to add things to American culture. We really are a melting pot, okay? Come, bring me your Thai food, bring me your tacos, bring me your spaghetti, bring me your fine beer or your fine sake, whatever. Bring it to the table. It becomes part of the American table. But you make yourself American. You assimilate to American culture. It's a dynamic process, and everything's always changing. And that's fine. That's great. We're humans. We're supposed to not be static. Now, with the idea of social justice, you've changed that to the idea that you come to America, and then America's supposed to provide special access, special programs, special things so that you don't have to assimilate. You don't have to become American to partake in American equality. And that's wrong. You know, there's people who talk about this as if it's all a cultural construct. At this point, we're arguing that 2 + 2 = 4 is a colonialist philosophy, and that mathematics is inherently racist. And I'm not joking. That is a serious conversation we're having right now. And it's funny because it was started as a parody of George Orwell's 1984, where 2 + 2 = 5 was a necessary evolution of authoritarianism. That's how it's expressed. And it was started as a parody of that and became serious. In the social justice crowd, it became serious that you are operating as a racist and an oppressor if you insist that 2 + 2 = 4. I was reading a post by a mathematician earlier this morning that literally said that understanding and coming to terms with the viewpoints of her students, this is college students, who were wrong in their answers, was necessary because their answers must be right because of their identities. So she had to come up with a way to interpret 2 + 2 = 5 in a way that made reality match it. This gets really slippery, and this is part of what the video is going to talk about, is how slippery this actually is, because you can't get a handle on it, and that's one of the things that's very hard to fight. So the initial idea of social justice is to get use special privileges, privileged means, special programs, to get greater justice for underprivileged groups. Fantastic, but there's some warning signs right from the beginning, which is that we're not looking for equal justice, and we're not looking for assimilation. We're looking for maintaining the idea of a special group, an underprivileged group, a different class. Big problem, number one, and this goes all the way back into the very early social engineering projects of progressivism, all the way back to the uplift movement in West Virginia. Like, all the way back. Very underpinnings of progressivism are that you have to create this group and maintain this group. They have to be maintained as a separate group. We'll get how this folds into the modern social justice movement in a moment, but do it right now. So social justice starts off with the idea of what we now call identities, special groups. And the idea is that you provide them with special programs, but the programs aren't there to help them assimilate, help them attain equal justice, become part of normal America, so to speak. And I am so far from normal that when I say normal America, I just mean that big, broad melting pot, right? But the idea is not to actually integrate, assimilate, bring them into that fold. The idea is to make them into a special group so that they can continue to have their special justice, social justice, not equal justice. Somewhere along the line, it shifts. You can see the shift in the 60s. Honestly, you can see the shift in the 80s. By the time we're midway through the previous presidential term, it is just openly taken over everywhere. Just nearly every discipline is starting to feel the effects. I noticed it in the late 90s, and early 2000s in college. I specifically took some women's studies courses because they're fun. I like the exploration of the thought. Let's look at the world through a different lens. It didn't go well because I am actually looking, and these are instructions on doctrine. It's kind of like going to a Bible study and actually asking questions and saying, hey, what about this? You don't get to do that. The Bible study has a format, a platform, a heuristic. They know exactly what the answers already are. And when you do women's studies, you find out really rapidly that one of the areas of social justice that broke down really early is they know what the answers are before they have even posed the questions. This is a big problem in the social justice world. So it shifted. Somewhere along the line, it shifted. But it continues to do that shift. It continues to keep its previous part in there as kind of it's like a weird little tentacle or a proboscis to get into your head. Okay? You can't deny that it would be nice if all those poor black kids had access to proper schooling and good nutrition. But it goes rapidly from that to the idea of identitarianism, intersectionalism, social justice being a thing about the oppressor and the oppressed, and having to punish the oppressor and privilege the oppressed. And it gets really messy really fast. So, but the warnings are there. The very nature of social justice is not equal justice. And right there, you know something's going to go wrong. And boy, has it gone wrong. So we get into critical social justice theory, which is the evolution of social justice into a pseudo-academic discipline, multidisciplinary movement. Okay, you've got it in physics now, all right? You've got social justice, critical social justice theory has infected physics, mathematics. It's getting its hooks into psychology and therapy, and that's really, really, really scary, because now you're looking at a world in a generation where to go to a therapist to try to get mental health help means that they're going to program you to the oppression, the oppressor-oppressed dichotomy, and you're going to have to deal with, you're going to have to deal with the fact that there is no patient and doctor relationship. There is an educator and oppressor, or a judge and oppressor, or judge and oppressed, or beneficiary and oppressed relationship. It's not going to be individually helpful. Individualism does not matter, except it does not matter when you get into critical social justice theory. Your class, your identity, your group is what matters. It's all based around that, your identities, your groups. The major dichotomy, of course, being the oppressor-oppressed, and the major function of intersectionalism is to try to find ways to group people into oppressor and oppressed. Okay, you're trying to fit everybody into this binary, but everybody has elements of oppressor and elements of oppressed, and you need to, raise up the oppressed and and depress the oppressor characteristics. So you're not supposed to study math as an actual discipline with right and wrong answers, because that boosts the oppressor side of your background and your intersectional background. Yeah, it really is that crazy. But it's also very slippery, okay? It's very hard to actually argue about this stuff, because they don't work on reality. The basis of reality, observation, deduction, induction, isn't there. What they do is they assign a conclusion and then force reality to fit. And there's all these little logical games that you play, okay? Logic and reason are something I talk about in libertarian circles quite often, where I say that, replacing humanity with logic and reason does not make you a better human. It might make you a better libertarian. So it's something you have to watch as a libertarian, is like, are you using logic and reason to replace humanity? Well, here we have a problem where logic and reason aren't used to define reality. They're used to justify a conclusion. Okay, you start with a conclusion. You can literally go pursue a degree in one of the intersectional fields, say women's studies, because I know this one. I've watched this happen. You can go in as a freshman with an idea of a type of oppression, or a type of patriarchal evil or something. This idea, this conclusion that you have, that you found in high school, that you just dreamed up in high school. You can go through an entire 6 years of study to get your master's degree, learning nothing, doing nothing except proving that conclusion on the basis of logic and not evidence. You just try to twist little tunnels of logic to make it true. You can do that, and you can be very successful. There are a lot of fields like that right now. So, I'm pulling off into the weeds, and the video is getting long. There's nothing just about social justice. There is only privilege in social justice. And what happened is that social justice went and shifted from the core idea of, hey, some people are underprivileged and we need to fix that, which is fantastic. Again, equal justice is a great thing. Equal opportunity is a great thing, but equal opportunity doesn't mean what the program means. It means equal opportunity, not equal results. That's all fine, but to call that social justice opens the door to what we've got now. Intersectionality, critical social justice theory, the politics, and now even the science of identitarianism, or identitarianism as the definition of your science. Even if your science is physical, even if you're talking about engineering, physics, the identitarianism and the colonial worldview versus the indigenous worldview and everything is now more important than empiricism. More important than empiricism. It is more important to grant validity to the identity, intersectional identity of oppression of the person who can't answer the math question and doesn't realize 2 + 2 = 4, than it is to teach the reality that if you put 2 apples next to 2 apples, you have 4 apples. Think about that for a minute. This is where social justice gets you. This is the problem with social justice. The stated surface level goals of equal opportunity, equal justice, equal access, these are fine things. You have to understand that those come in a context of assimilation to the culture, being part of the culture, Americanism, so to speak, not in the context of special groups that don't have to participate in the culture in order to get special privileges. And that's where social justice really goes wrong. I'm repeating myself because that's how you do the video. You repeat yourself. Social justice, by its very nature, does not provide an avenue for equal justice. Okay? And then it devolves and develops into critical social justice theory. And you come into this idea that anytime you go, it's the world's biggest Dunning-Kruger example. And I hate people talking about Dunning-Kruger because they mostly get it wrong. Okay, the main part of Dunning-Kruger is the idea that people who have expertise in a field often assume other people are going to understand what they say, and also assume that their expertise applies to another field. This is the actual thing. People on the internet tend to, especially authoritarian scientists, tend to use Dunning-Kruger as a way to try to claim anyone whose opinion they don't like is stupid, dumb, and they just think they're smart. That's not what Dunning-Kruger is at all. But this is the biggest example of Dunning-Kruger ever. It's the idea that because you have knowledge, not even expertise, not even reality, just knowledge of a ideology, critical social justice theory, social justice, okay, ideas of identitarianism, because you have some knowledge of that area, whether it's valid or not, you have knowledge of it, you now have the ability to speak intelligently, pass judgment on, and direct the course of other disciplines, other areas of knowledge. You are a social justice thinker. Therefore, you should be able to tell people how psychology works, how physics works, how chemistry works, how to interpret history, how to design cars, how to design laws. It's the world's biggest example of Dunning-Kruger gone insane. So that's it. That's all I got for you. It's a sideways look. Social justice starts off with a primary fallacy of intent, and I think that is inescapable and irreconcilable. I don't think you can fix that. I'm all for equal justice, but I don't think social justice can ever be equal. Stay sideways.